Hey there guys, how's it going? My name's Mikey and welcome to this fairly quick walk through my Japanese manga collection. This is a video which has been requested by you guys, so thank you very much as ever for getting in the comments. And yeah, I thought we'd have a really casual look at what I've got in no particular order, and I'll also just talk only very briefly about any given series just so that this video doesn't become too long, and also because with some of my manga I tend to talk about it a lot in the Draw with Mikey series anyway. So to avoid any spoilers, if I'm going to show the pages of a particular manga, I will try to make sure I only do it from the first volume in a given series. And just as a disclaimer, my Japanese pronunciation is not what it used to be, so I'm probably going to murder some of the names that I read out when it comes to the mangakas or the writers and illustrators to some of these works. And yes, my collection, unless otherwise stated, is all in Japanese, so you'll probably notice that the volume covers look completely different. There might be a different amount of volumes in a given series than there would be in the English versions, and this is kind of for two main reasons. I've had the opportunity to go to Japan on a couple of occasions many years ago, and it is so incredibly cheap to buy secondhand manga out there compared to over here in the West that I just did loads back then, shipped it all over. And for the second reason, to really kind of help me push up my game when it comes to reading and writing Japanese in general. And because it's been about 6 or 7 years since I actually last went out there and physically bought manga instead of just reading it online, you'll probably notice that my collection has a bit more of an old schooler vibe to it. So I hope you enjoy that, and yeah, let's go. So let's begin with the full 34 volume collection of Dragonball by Akira Toriyama. There is not much you can say about this series which isn't already out there. It is a benchmark in shonen manga. It was the gateway anime for loads of people in the 90s in the West who kind of started to catch on with Japanese animation, and the full collection runs from the very beginning of Young Goku all the way to the end of the Majin Buu saga. And for me, it's the early stuff I prefer. All of the curvier drawing styles and the humour and the heart it had was really what got me into place with this, although not to lie, all of the later stuff in the Cell Saga also blew my mind. 7 volumes of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind by Hayao Miyazaki. This is a beautiful manga before it got turned into one of their better films, and as well as this in Japanese, I also have a copy of most of the volumes in English which were lent to me by a friend at work, probably permanently. The 6 volumes of Akira by Katsuhiro Otomo, of only which a small portion was turned into Akira the animated film, and it's just mental what goes on in these, and the consistency of this massive metropolitan environment that is just put through in the visuals is incredible. 33 volumes of Vagabond by Noa Takehiko, and this guy is an incredibly skilled artist. He paints all of his pages with ink and brush, and it is a beautiful portrayal of kind of samurai lifestyle and feudal states Japan. What happens in the story isn't necessarily beautiful, but it's just such consistent high quality art, you really just fall in love with it. 12 volumes of Neon Genesis Evangelion by Yoshiyuki Sadamoto. The anime to this is a massive benchmark, it's mental, and yeah, just had to get the manga collection to back it up. I have a handful of volumes of One Piece because that's a series which is so much fun and far too big to actually try to collect in full, but I did always want to grab a few volumes to particular parts in story arcs that really resonated with me or really had an impact. And in a really similar vein, I have a handful of volumes of Naruto as well, and despite how the series dropped out, I have a handful of volumes of Bleach as well. I've got 12 volumes of Backi Son of Ogre, and this is a very stylized fighting manga with its own particular world, and although this is absolutely fine, I only really picked these up because I was really into the second arc, this one being the third, which is New Grappler Backi, and that's one where they all tend to fight the prisoners, if you know what I'm on about. And that one I just read through a lot when I was in Japan trying to spend cheap nights in manga cafes, to the point that on the way out I picked up then the next arc in the series. 29 volumes of Hunter x Hunter by Togashi Yoshihiro. Now, I'm not going to get into it too much other than to say this is one of the best shonen stroke subversive shonen mangas out there. It is one of my personal favourites, and the 2011 anime remake as well is really faithful to the manga and definitely worth your time. 10 volumes of Helsing by Kouta Hirano. This is an incredibly fun but very adult and gory manga to get into. The Helsing Ultimate anime series really nailed it as well, and this is a series that I got into at university through a friend over there, and one of the very few anime that I will allow is better probably in the English dubbed version. a French copy of X 1999 Volume 1. This particular series, especially the film, were one of the earlier anime movies that I was ever exposed to as a kid, and also incredibly gruesome and harsh. It was put together by a mixed group at Clamp, and sadly the manga to this day remains incomplete. 15 volumes of Shiguroi by Takeyuki Yamaguchi. Now, the anime to this series is an incredible thing. It is very adult, very visceral, full of horrible depictions of stuff, but so stylized with an amazing soundtrack that you really get sucked into this world. The anime goes up to volume 6, so the rest of the volumes up to 15 continue the mentalness that goes on. It's really quite a thing, but written in a very old style of Japanese as well, so quite a lot to get the head round. 13 volumes of Death Note by Tsukumi Oba and Takeshi Obata. Quite a famous series in its own right. I kind of lose interest when one of the main opponents in the series changes, without any spoilers, but other than that I felt worth picking up. A few English volumes of Battle Royale, obviously being a famous film and a very graphic and violent manga behind it by Koshin Takami and Masayuki Taguchi, lent to me years ago by a friend at karate. There's a couple volumes of Masakaru Katsura's Z-Man, which I really like for the artwork more than anything else, and volume 1 of Finland Saga by Makoto Yukimura. This is a incredibly underrated manga about Vikings. It's kind of a historical series. It really is worth a read, but I just don't see it out there very much. Then I've got the first 3 volumes of Rikyo, the Violence Hero. This covers the prison arc, and I've got this less for the manga, which is absolutely good to read, but more because I once saw a film based off of this, which was mental, and I just had to check it out. And in a similar vein, because the animes were very much old school things close to my heart, I picked up volume 1 of Trigun and also volume 1 of 3 x 3 Eyes. These things are classic tropes of anime and definitely worth a watch. I've got about 9 volumes of GANTZ by Hiroya Oku, and some of these I have in Japanese and some of the volumes are in French because they were all lent to me by different people, and this series was absolutely where it was at back in the day. Nobody knew what was going on, it was violent and visceral and mental, and yeah, it's not for kids. 18 volumes of Monster by Naoki Urasawa. I've not read any of this, but it's the same person behind 20th Century Boys, which is a manga series I absolutely adored. It was really, really good, really creepy as well about what can happen to like societies and cults, and this apparently is supposed to be another kind of really well penned story of his as well. 4 volumes of Ponyo, On the Cliff by the Sea by Hayao Miyazaki. This is one of those manga which is actually built up by still images from the anime and then converted back into a panel format, and I got this because the simplicity of it was actually a really good way again to just build up the Japanese language skills. The first 4 volumes of Saint Onisan by Nakamura Hikaru. Again, this is a series I haven't read at all, but was recommended to me by one of my Japanese pen friends who then posted me a set. And other than a few other randoms floating around the place, the last of my collection is 35 volumes of Kentaro Miura's Berserk. This is one of the greatest manga out there as well, in my opinion. It is a gothic medieval horror fantasy opus which just spans so many events and so many things. It is way better than the anime portrayals which are out at the moment, so please don't be put off by them. This is really where it's at, except again, I've talked about it a lot in other videos, so let's just say it's quite adult as well. So that's it guys, thank you very much for joining me along on this slightly nostalgic trip through my Japanese manga collection. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was of course one of your suggestions, and yeah, if you want to talk to me about any of the manga that I've just covered, or if you think you've got manga of your own which has a really particular place in your heart when you were growing up or anything like that, get in the comments below and tell me all about it. So yeah, I hope you have a good week, come and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys around. Take care.